Hey guys, welcome to the Team Hardcore training. Today is Thursday, August 30th. So we're right towards the end of the month, and I thought it would be really relevant to do a training on follow-ups because this is where your focus needs to be at the end of a month, especially if you want to finish your month strong. So if you are watching this training as the recording, maybe 2 months from now, or obviously for this month, and even if you're at a point where you're like, wow, I just did not do enough this month, I've been so busy or whatever, you can literally gain huge momentum in just a matter of 24 to 48 hours if you get laser focused and really are efficient with your time. Instead of beating yourself up about what you did or didn't do over this past month, you can make a change right now and really, really help some people because as long as you've been putting yourself out there, you've been consistent on social media, which I've seen so many of you guys on our team doing such great posts and adding value, but you're just not doing some of the behind the scenes stuff that really move the needle, not only for your business, but for those people that you're trying to serve. They need someone who's going to follow up with them and who's going to give them that nudge to make a change in their life. And it's what they want, but a lot of times we don't act until we feel like we have someone to support us and we have a plan. And so those people that are out there, they need you and they need to hear from you. So I really hope that this training is one that you'll take notes on and you'll pass along to your team members and really get focused. Now, I'm not going to go through all the announcements that I could. I want you to check your online office, the Coach Breaking News. Okay, so when you go there, you're going to see you can still earn a spot for the Transform 20 test group. You'll see the information on the pumpkin spice Shakeology, the Super Saturday that's coming up, the fact that To Be Mindset is still on sale this week. So all that stuff, I want you to go check there, okay? Now let me get into the content. So I can see who's on, and Kiki's on, that's awesome, and Carrie and Wendy and Michelle and Kimberly, awesome. So you guys let me know if you have questions. So let me try and make this quick. We're going to be talking about follow-ups because the magic really is in the follow-ups. That's where the power of your business really lies. I mean, yes, you have to be doing constantly. You have to be inviting people one-to-one. 80% of what I do in my business is behind the scenes. You'll notice a lot of times I don't even post that much. Not that you shouldn't. I'm just saying I'm at a point in my organization with the size of my organization and what I'm trying to do with equipping you guys and training you guys, that a lot of what I do is behind the scenes, and my invites are behind the scenes. They are one-to-one. My follow-ups are one-to-one. And that's what really impacts people the most. It's, yes, I still do those posts to my wall or to my Insta story, inviting people to a sneak peek, inviting people to, a group or whatever it may be. But where the magic really happens is in that one-to-one message with that person. Because when people see a post or an Insta story or whatever, they know you're talking to everyone who is watching or reading. They know that. But when you're having that conversation with that one person, they know that you are listening to their specific needs and you are hearing their hesitation and you are hearing their situation. And so all of what you have to offer and all of what you have to say, the value to them is tenfold because now you're having that conversation with them. So that's one thing I learned very early on in my business. I was talking to a network marketing guru and I said, I've got like 5 friends that I want to talk to about this business opportunity. Should I get them together? Should we go for coffee and talk about this? And he was like, no. I was like, really? Like, I was so shocked. I'm like, all right, I'm about to learn something. He's like, have a one-on-one conversation with each of those friends and figure out what are their pain points. Like, what are they concerned about? What do they want to get out of this business? Why would they want to add that to their plate? Like, really hear them out. And I thought, that's gold. It makes so much sense. Of course, if I'm thinking about, buying a car, I'm not going to like go to some mass presentation on it. I want to talk to someone specifically, like, will this meet my needs? So let's talk about what does it mean to actually follow up. You're going to hear, and I'm sure you've already heard my trainings or other people's trainings talking about follow-ups. And you might think that when we say, you have to be following up, that we're saying you need to ask that person again. by the way, are you still planning to buy that challenge pack? Or by the way, are you still planning to get Shakeology? Or by the way, are you still planning to, join the business? And that's not what we mean. Follow-ups are really all encompassing. It encompasses a question maybe like that, but it encompasses continuing to build a relationship with that person. So I like to refer to them as touch points. Where you might have invited someone to your virtual boot camp, or you might have talked to someone about the business opportunity, and the conversation maybe kind of fizzled out, and you don't really know how to get back on that conversation without just messaging them out of the blue and saying, hey, by the way, are you still interested? Which you can do, depends on the relationship with that person. But what you want to do for sure is continue to build the relationship. So you might just reach out back to them and say, hey, I know that your son just had a surgery last week. How'd that go? Just be personable with people. Just build that relationship and show them that you care. And when it's appropriate, and you kind of have to have a sense for this, but when you feel that it's appropriate, say, hey, just so you know, I'm finishing up the final touches on the spiritual boot camp and getting the last few people in. I've got a couple spots left. I just want to make sure I don't drop the ball on you. So I wanted to double check. Are you still interested? Okay, so put it on yourself that it's your fault. Like, I'm so sorry if I dropped the ball. Or if someone that didn't respond to you and say, I'm so sorry if I caught you at a bad time, but I also don't want to assume that you're no longer interested. Did you want me to follow up with you again with the next one? Or are you still considering, because I do have a couple spots left, or I do have, whatever. So make sure that you just are personable, and you're communicating, and you're hearing their needs, and you're looking at, previous conversations. Like, what have you talked about? What's this person going through? Like, are they going through a move right now? Are they going through, their kids just started school? I mean, talk to any mom with kids right now, and they'll tell you, like, we only have one, and he's pretty self-sufficient, but you talk to any moms that have, 2, 3, 4 kids, and it's an overwhelming time when kids are starting school. So you really have to make sure you are always thinking like that person and putting yourself in their shoes. What would they want to hear? So I'm going to talk about a few things specifically, though. I'm going to talk about why to follow up, how to follow up, how often to follow up, and who to follow up with. But I just want to clarify what we're talking about in terms of what a follow-up actually is, because it's not just asking that question, by the way, are you still going to join, or are you going to buy? So, why is it so important to follow up? Why is that where the magic happens? It's because people do not just join or buy the first time that you mention something. You should all know that by now. If you're a brand new coach, don't worry, you're going to hear it many times. But if you've been in this business for any length, that's the truth. People do not just join or just buy from the first invite. You need to have those follow-up conversations. And again, when I say follow-up, you need to have those touch point conversations where you're building that relationship, and you're just showing that you care, and you're just showing that you're listening to their situation and their needs. So people are busy, and when you send, and a lot of us are building our business on Instagram. For sure, the majority of my business is coming right now from Instagram. I would say mostly from Insta stories and a little bit from like wall posts. But for us, we're on social media quite a bit, right? Well, most people aren't, okay? If their business is not on social media, then they're not constantly checking their DMs. They're not checking their Facebook inbox messages all the time. They're not checking that you responded back on a comment that they put on Instagram. That's not where their focus is. So don't take it personally when you get crickets, or when you can tell that they've seen your message, but they don't respond. How many times, we've all done it, where you open a DM and you shouldn't have, because you are supposed to be doing something else at that moment, and you open a DM, and it's a DM where it requires conversation. It requires, in your case, you're asking someone, possibly inviting someone or following up with someone on something, and you're kind of asking for a decision to be made. Well, they may not be ready to make a decision, and they're like, and they're not sure what to say. So they just close out that DM and they go on and do what they were actually supposed to be doing. So don't take it personally, because number one, they might have been too busy to respond back, or number two, they're just not sure. they're just not sure. Maybe they're not sure if they can financially swing it. Maybe they're not sure if they have the time for that. They don't want to let you down. In a lot of cases, that's just it. Like if it's about building or starting this business, they're afraid that they might fail. And so they're afraid they might let you down. Or if it's the challenge group, they might be afraid that they don't have enough time to really engage in that group, and they're afraid that they might disappoint you. So there's a whole slew of reasons why someone might not respond. Don't try and predict what that reason is. Don't try and judge why they didn't respond. Don't take it personally. Don't just assume that they're not interested, because that so many times is not the case. So many times where I've sent out, like I'll do like a poll on Insta stories, and I'll send out a message to everyone. I usually have it so that like one answer is yes and the other one is maybe, or something like that. So I'll send out a message to everyone that votes. Now I'll get a lot that where I can tell they've seen my message and they didn't respond. I still follow up with another message. Depends on the person. You know, I'll look at their account, I'll look at their name. Like I use their name in the DM message. I don't just say, hey girl. I always try and figure out, you know, what is their name from their account. And if I don't see their name, I'll say, hey, by the way, I don't want to just call you girl. Like, you know, what is your name? So make sure it's personable and realize that you just need to follow up and start conversation again and say, hey, by the way, sorry if I caught you at a bad time. Or did you not mean to vote on that? I'll say something like that sometimes. I just want to start conversation. I just want to get conversation started, because if they're feeling hesitant, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have voted on that, or maybe I'm not interested in this. They're feeling hesitant. I want to know. I want to, as we say, peel back those layers. Like, what is holding them back? What is making them now not so sure they even want to respond, or what's making them hesitate? I just want to know, so we can just talk, and I can clear things up, because I know that most of the time, if someone's not interested in what we have in terms of our nutrition or our fitness programs or our business opportunity, I know that most of the time what's holding them back is preconceived notions that aren't true. Most of the time, their hesitations and what's held them back are preconceived notions that are not true. And so I can't wait to bring those out so that I can first validate how they feel, or validate what they thought. That's my very first thing. I'm going to validate and say, I totally know why you felt that way, or I totally know why you thought that, or I completely can relate to why you thought that. I completely relate to why you felt that way. That's the number one thing you have to do, is validate. Okay, so if you're taking notes, I hope you are, write down that when you have these touch points, you need to validate people's thoughts, their fears, their hesitations. Don't think I need to convince them. I need to prove them wrong. I need to show them that what they're feeling is wrong. No, they don't want to be told that they're wrong. The way they felt was the way they felt. They want to know that they had every right to feel that way, and that you completely understand. That makes people go, ah. So then they're not in defense mode. Then they're not feeling like they're being sold to. They feel like they're being heard. And that's really, really key in having these touch points and building that relationship and building trust, is that they know they've been heard, and that you understand why they felt they did the way they did. So people are busy. People need to know that they're going to be heard. You need to get those conversations started. You got to get them talking. And so you might even, when you follow up, you might even start talking about something else. Like, hey, by the way, so here you've sent a message with an invite. They had crickets, and then your next message is, hey, by the way, I love that bathing suit you just posted. Where did you get it? Just get them talking. Get them talking so that they know, you're not just this person trying to make a sale. So how do you actually, what do you actually say? So we've talked a little bit about that. But like I said, you want to make sure that your words are coming across that you want to help them in their specific pain point. And so for those of you that are sending out cold invites, that becomes a little bit difficult, because you might not know what their pain point is. So I know there are a lot of successful coaches who just send out cold invites, but typically, and you may not realize this, but even when a coach is sending out a ton of cold invites, meaning they don't know the person, they've never really had a conversation with them, and they're just saying, hey, I have a virtual boot camp starting. Did you want to, is that something you'd be interested in? Typically, they are saying that to a person that's watching their stories. And so a lot of coaches may not realize this, that when someone is doing that, it's because they've been watching their stories. So just sending out a cold invite to someone who's never watched your story, doesn't follow you, has no idea who you are, and it's just a completely cold invite, that's going to be the percentage of that one actually working out for you is going to be pretty low, because you still need to build a relationship with that person. They need to understand who you are and where you're coming from, and they need to know, like, and trust you. Okay, but it's different. If they've been watching your stories, then yeah, put a poll on there that kind of draws those people out of the woodwork that are thinking about maybe making a change. So those polls on Insta stories are huge for our business. That allows you to do the invite, and then allows you to do the follow-up. So we've already talked about kind of like what to say, how to say it. Like I said, if it's crickets, you can go back to talking about a different topic, something that you've seen them post on their wall, or just saying, hey, I saw your invite, and maybe that's something that I saw your vote on my story, and maybe that's something you're not interested in, but I'm doing this other group just as, for fun or whatever. Maybe it's a personal development group that you're running or whatever. So get them talking, get them engaged in something, help them in some way. So that's the other thing I wanted to point out, is that not only do you want to validate their feelings and fears and hesitations, you want to add value. So even when someone hasn't bought anything yet, they haven't signed up yet, they haven't even acted like they might or will, do something or give them something of value, because that goes really far. Something that has nothing to do with a product we offer or fitness that we offer, something that just would add value for them. So let's say you see in their bio that they are gluten-free or something, that they have to eat gluten-free or whatever. So then you say, hey, by the way, I am really into eating gluten-free as well. I can't have gluten anymore. And I came across this recipe. Maybe you would be interested as well. Some kind of adding value, or maybe it's just a helpful tip on something, based on something you saw them post. So just be helpful. Show that you are willing to help people, expecting nothing in return. Be interested in them. You've heard that a million times too. You don't need to be interesting. You need to be interested. Show that you're interested in them. Okay, so how often do you need to follow up? Typically people do not buy or join unless there's been at least something like 5 to 10 follow-ups or touch points in between the time that you planted the seed. So you may have planted the seed due to an Insta story poll that you did, and they voted a certain way, and so you sent them a quick kind of like invite, right? That's planting the seed. Okay, so hopefully you planted the seed with like 50 people or something based on that poll, or maybe it was 100 people. Do a poll that is general enough that people don't feel like they're going to be sold to. They just feel like they're going to be helped. Maybe it's, what do you struggle with most? Salty foods or sweet foods, and it's just a poll. It just gives you the opportunity to have conversation with people. But 5 to 10 touch points typically before someone actually will commit. And you have to be tracking. You have to be tracking who you invited to a challenge group, who you've invited to a free group, if you're doing a free group, who you have invited to the business opportunity. You have to be tracking. If you're not tracking, everything's out the window. Literally everything's out the window. You cannot have a business if you're not tracking, because you can't have a business if you don't do follow-ups, and you can't do follow-ups with any kind of effectiveness if you're not tracking and don't know who to follow up with. Don't know who to follow up with, okay? So never take them off your list unless you just realize, okay, they're the type of person I don't want to associate with. Like, I don't want to associate with that person. I don't care if it gets me extra successful points. I don't want to associate with that person. And there's those people out there. But if it's a person that you feel like-minded with, then don't take them off your list, because there's, I'm sure, going to be a point in their life where they need you. They need the accountability, or they need a nutritional that we have, or they need the fitness that we have, or they need the business opportunity that we have, or they need the community that we have, or they need the, the support that your team offers, or whatever it may be. Pretty much everyone that is like-minded with you should never take off the list. They should always stay on the list. So if you've been in this business for any length of time, you should have a ton of people to follow up with, from your warm market, from your cold market, from previous challenge groups, from current challenge groups, from free groups, all those people. And you might think, yeah, I've exhausted all that. Well, everything changes every day for every person. Literally everything changes every day for every person. That is a fact. So even if you followed up with everyone, in July, you can follow up with everyone again today, and you're going to get different results than you got in July or even in August, because people's lives change, jobs change, situations change, family situations change, schedules change, jobs change. People hit rock bottom on certain things. It's amazing how much really can change for someone. And if you're the one that's been solid, that's not been pushy, that's not been salesy, and isn't being in your face on your feed and trying to, push products and push things, then you're the person they're going to want to go to. Okay. So you have to follow up, and those follow-ups are going to be much more effective if you are being a coach that leads by example and leads with who you are and what you have to offer, versus leading with Beachbody. Like we've always said, Beachbody's not your brand. You are the brand. Okay. So show why you are, what you have to offer and why you are different. And if you're on their radar, then you're the one that they're going to want to go with. So how often, like I said, 5 to 10, never take them off the list. The other thing is, when you're following up, I just want to make sure I mention, meet them where they are. So many coaches will get caught up in this. Well, they said they don't want a challenge pack because blah, blah, blah. And they have this legit reason, and this and that and this and that. Okay, cool. So, but they still are someone that wants help. How can you help them? It's almost as if some coaches get in their heads like, oh my gosh, if I can't help them with a challenge group, with a challenge pack or a challenge group, I can't help them. And that's so not true. There's, oh my gosh. I mean, obviously Beachbody on Demand, just in and of itself, all the different nutritionals that we have, all the different, the business opportunities. Some people will say, well, people just can't afford that challenge pack. Okay, maybe they're financially tight. Maybe they need to make some extra income in their life. Maybe they'd be interested in the business opportunity. $40 and you start a business that can be earning, 6 or 7 figures years down the road. Sign me up. Like, people that, and look at what their needs are and meet them where they are. How can you help them? Really think about that, instead of getting in your head that like you can only help them with this Lift 4 challenge pack, or you can only help them with Shakeology, or you can only help them with whatever. But you have to meet them where they are, and people really appreciate that. Really, really appreciate that. It goes a long way with trust. So the other thing with how often is not just how often to actually follow up with a particular person, but also you as your business, you need to have a system in place for how often you do follow-up blitzes. Now, we talk about you should be doing this many invites per day. You should be doing this many follow-ups per day. You should post this many times per day, once or twice per day. You should be doing this many Insta stories per day. Like, we have all these things, but in all honesty, what works for a lot of coaches is doing things in blocks. So blocks of time. So like, on, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, let's say those are your days for inviting. So maybe you have a goal of inviting, 30 or 50 people per week. Obviously your goals are up to you depending on what you want to do, but obviously the more invites you do, the more seeds you plant, the better you're going to do. But let's just say you had a goal of 30 over the course of a week. So maybe you do 10 on Monday, 10 on Tuesday, 10 on Wednesday. Maybe you do all 30 on Monday. But having things in blocks like that really helps, because you can kind of get yourself pumped up for it and get yourself in that mode. So I like to do a follow-up blitz, and I think most successful coaches do it this way too, where they do once or twice a week, do just a total follow-up blitz, just a whole list of people where they're going to go through and do follow-ups with. And not every one of them is going to be, hey, by the way, I have this new coach training starting? Were you still interested? Are you still considering this? Some of my messages will say that if I feel like we're at that point in the conversation. Others will just say, hey, how are things going? I know that you just started a new job, and I know that you were worried about how overwhelmed you'd feel. How's it going? You know, it might just be, again, a touch point, but I still consider it in my follow-ups, okay? So Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays are a really good day for follow-ups. So I like to do my follow-up blitzes either one or two of those days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And here's why. People are in a mood on Fridays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that tends to be more open-minded because it's the end of the week and people aren't usually, again, I'm kind of making a blanket statement, but people aren't usually as stressed and don't feel like they have as much on their plate on those days. And a lot of times that's where when people get paid. And so they just feel a little bit more like relaxed and like they can make a relaxed decision. Whereas if I were following up on a Monday, I've never done that because I know for myself, I'm super busy on Mondays. And I know most people are. It's just like it's the first day of the week and things are crazy. So typically Thursday, Friday, Saturday works really, really well. People are in a better mood. They've made it through the week. Life seems amazing, more so than maybe on a Monday. Okay, but Monday is a good day to plant seeds. Sundays and Mondays are typically a really good day to plant the seed of, have you ever considered a business like this? Because that's the day where people are like, yeah, I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing. Like I'm not getting closer to where I want to be in my life doing what I'm doing. And those decisions, a lot of times people have that mentality on a Sunday or Monday. So that's a good day to plant the seed. That's a lot of times where a person will say, you know what, I partied all weekend. I don't feel as good as I know I should. What am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? And so that's a great day to plant the seed for a challenge group. But it's also a great day to plant the seed for the business opportunity. So Sundays and Mondays are good days for that. But I've even had success on Tuesdays and Wednesdays with that. But as far as follow-ups, best towards the end of the week. Okay, so then I just wanted to briefly review and then we'll be done. I'm gonna see if you have any questions. Who to follow up with, okay? So even if you're a brand new coach, now if you're brand new, like you're not even through your new coach training yet, then it's different. You need to kind of, get some solid footing. And you probably don't have like a list of people to follow up with because you just started your business, and that's okay. You will build that list. You need to be building that list. You need to be planting those seeds so that you do have a follow-up blitz that you can do a week from now or a month from now. But if you've been doing this business for any length of time, then you have people that you've invited to a free group. You have people that you've invited to the business opportunity. You've had people that you've invited to challenge groups. You've had people that have been in challenge groups. You've had people who were coaches, then canceled and might want to become a coach again. You have people that you talked to about this a year ago and it just wasn't the right time for them. You have lots of people that you can be following up with. Like it's redonkulous how many people. And unfortunately, if you don't follow up with them because you assume that they're good or they don't need help, or you assume that they would have reached out to you if they actually needed help, now they're joining someone else. They're joining some other coach that actually did get on their radar and is following up with them. And that just stings when you're like, oh my gosh, I've known this person for a long time and now they're a coach and they just joined so-and-so, or now they're, getting results and like so crazy excited about their fitness. And they've been in these challenge groups with this other coach, and it's because you didn't follow up. And I know following up is scary. It's probably just as scary as the actual invite, maybe more scary, because you're so afraid of being pushy. But I promise you, if you are good or you get good with validating and touch points that have nothing to do with the sale or the join, and get really good at adding value where it has nothing to do with a sale or a product or anything, just adding value, giving tips, giving your advice on something, then you will always feel good about your follow-ups. You won't have to feel icky or pushy at all. If I felt like if my system of doing things was just invite, then ask if they're still interested, then ask again if they're still interested, then ask again if they're still interested. I wouldn't feel good about what I do. So I make sure I've got those touch points in there, and I ask them, by the way, how's the new job, or how was the move, or whatever. That way I realize I don't care what their, I'm not emotionally attached to what their final decision is going to be. So the more you can remove yourself and just say, hey, I know I'm going to follow up with, 50 people today, and I know only, 5 of them are going to need something, the business, or a challenge pack, or Beachbody on Demand. That's fine. It doesn't matter to me who it is that needs what, because it's their thing. It's dependent on their situation and their mindset that day and how busy they are that day or whatever. I just know there's probably going to be a small percentage in there that the stars will align for them, and this is what they need right now. I don't need to care who it is that needs what, because it's on their timing, right? So as long as you approach it like that and you just kind of emotionally detach yourself from what they say, then you're going to go about it so much better. But if you are that person, that coach that's like, I'm going to focus on these 5 people, and I hope that they all want to do this, you're setting yourself up for, I would never do that. That would be, I might've done it when I was a brand new coach, but I would never do that, because it sets you up for all your eggs are in this basket. All these 5 people, you're just so hypersensitive and aware to how they respond. Whereas if you're talking to 50 people, you're like, hey, yeah, sure, whatever. Well, I just have a couple spots left. And so you're like, it's not as, you're not as focused on each and every person, how they respond or what they say, because you realize you're just putting this gift out there, this gift of fitness and this gift of this business. And it's cool with you. Whoever's ready to do it is ready to do it. And whoever's not ready, that's okay. You still love them. You're still going to be friends with them. You're still going to talk to them. You're not going to, write them off in any way, shape, or form. And you're still going to comment on their content and whatever. Like, you're still going to show, like, that's cool. Like, you're not, if you are like writing people off because they gave you crickets or whatever, then your business isn't going to grow the way it should, because people want to know that you care about them. So if someone tells me, look, I cannot swing this right now. I'm going on this, this vacation, and I'm not even going to have Wi-Fi and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool. Oh my gosh, no worries whatsoever. And I just have that genuine conversation. Right. So let me see if you guys have any questions. How many times should I follow up with someone if they're seeing the messages? Usually if I get crickets, I'll follow up with them one more time. And I make it, like I said, a message where they can easily respond to it. I'm not going to say, like, if I have crickets, I'm not going to say, it depends. It depends on the previous conversation. So it's hard to say, I always do this or I always do that, because it depends on the previous conversations. Like, in previous conversations, we've talked about the fact that this person really wants to get on track, and she's really struggling with accountability, and we've had those conversations, then I'm going to feel comfortable saying, hey, Lisa, I know this is so important to you. I realize my DM may have come at a bad time, but I also don't want to bother you. Were you still considering this, or do you want me to follow up with you later? So I'll say something like that. That's a very simple message for her to reply back to. And I know we've been having those conversations. So if she still gives me crickets, I'll wait a good couple weeks, maybe even a month, to say, hey, Lisa, I just want to follow up with you again. I don't want to drop the ball on you, because I know how important this was to you. Okay. Does that make sense, Rachel? What is the best way to keep track of interested people? A spreadsheet. Jamie, okay, so that's a great question, talking about tracking. And we actually have a team training on tracking. So if you guys go to JanelleSummers.com under weekly trainings, and there's no password or anything, just JanelleSummers.com weekly trainings, and you'll see that we did a team training using Teamzy. So Teamzy is just one option. You could use Google Streak. You could use whatever you want. Pen and paper works too, or just an Excel spreadsheet. Any way that you feel works for you. And I suggest that you try a few different ways. And you might even be like me, where you do one way for a little bit, and then you do another way for another little bit. There's no one way that just works for everyone. You have to kind of figure out what works for you, but you do want to track. Like I know some just very simply will use pen and paper and just, highlight the people that have, like maybe they'll circle the people that have interest. First of all, I wouldn't even write people down unless you have a reason to track them. Like I wouldn't track every new person you're following on Instagram or whatever. Maybe you do, but that personally, I wouldn't track that much. But maybe you are circling them once you've done the invite. Maybe you are highlighting them once they have asked for a link. So figure out what your system is going to be so that you do have a way to track to follow up. Yeah, so Michelle said she gets crickets and then she doesn't want to be a pain, but you're not being a pain, Michelle. And I know Michelle, you have a lot to offer people and you are not being a pain. People are just busy. You can't assume that they aren't interested. Believe me, if I just let it go every time I got crickets, I wouldn't be where I am today, for sure. And if I wasn't a coach and you messaged me about coaching, you would have probably gotten crickets. And if you would have invited me to a challenge group, you probably would have gotten crickets. Just because I check DMs sometimes and I'm busy and I didn't understand the value of a challenge group and I didn't understand the value of this business. Neither of those things. The general population doesn't understand the value of a challenge pack. You can't just say challenge pack. The general population does not understand the value of Shakeology. They think it's just an expensive protein drink. So you have to make sure these conversations even get started so that you can gradually start peeling back the layers. All right. Any other questions? So some people are tracking everyone that they talk to. I mean, I will say some coaches do that. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I want to make sure, like for me personally, I maybe it's because of where I am in my business, but I track the people where I've planted a seed. I want to know the people who have a need. And so where I've planted a seed is with people who have a need. So they've voted on a Insta story or they've messaged me about something. Like they might have even messaged me about what kind of shoes I had on, but I'll be like, yeah, they're this, but I only use them for this workout or that workout. What kind of workouts are you doing? Boom, now we're on the topic of working out. So there's ways that you can, kind of transition conversations as long as you're being interested in them. I could have just said, yeah, they're these shoes and here's where I got them. Instead I said, what kind of workouts are you doing? Because I'm thinking like her. Well, she's asking me about shoes for a reason. She must be working out, or maybe it's just about fashion for her, but let's find out. We got to talk. Dina says that Google Streak seems pretty data entry dominant, like a lot of data entry. Yeah, I think it gets easier the more you use it, like as with anything. If you'd rather use TeamZ, then like I said, we've got a team training on TeamZ. I know Melanie Mitro has a training on Google Streak. I know that Christine Dwyer does as well. But yeah, I mean, if you did want to use pen and paper, you could go that route as well. So I think that's it. Let me know if you guys have any further questions, and I'll answer them on the Coach Success page. And I will see you next week. Please have a great positive attitude about finishing your month strong, because trust me, most people are kind of at the end of the month where they've gotten through the thick of what happens in August, which is all the school starting stuff, and people are kind of at a point where they're ready to exhale and they made it through. So people are ready right now, and people do need help, and people are ready to transition to fall. So this is really a good time to be reaching out to people, even if you talk to them earlier in August or in July or whatever. All right. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for getting on, and I'll see you next week.